answered them already, please give them a go before you correct them using the video. Some of them were a bit tricky or a little bit difficult to understand what the textbook was asking, but hopefully after this you'll be a little bit more clearer about what's going on. You should have a pencil or a colored pen in your hand and you should be making corrections. Expect to make a few mistakes. We are learning. The first part is about sentence construction. And number 1 asks you to complete the following sentences using your own words. Now, your own words means that there's going to be flexibility in terms of your answer. I'll explain in a moment. So A says to be a successful sailor, you need to B says to be a you need to and C says you need speed, good balance, and courage, a skateboarder. Now, because this is revision, probably you should have paged back and seen what have we been doing to do with verbs. And if you turn back in your textbook, you'll see that page 81, it speaks about the infinitive forms of the verb and using the words to be. So that's what they were actually asking you to do. If you've made a mistake or done the wrong thing, don't panic. We're just going to do a correction. So your answers to A and B will vary. Each person will have a slightly different answer, but you will use the infinitive form of the verb. So if you haven't used the infinitive form of the verb, then you're going to have to go and change it. Right. Now, they gave you a bit of a clue that they wanted it to be in the infinitive verb. It's the repetition of the words to be in those sentences. To be a successful sailor, to be, and then if you look at C, you read, you need speed, good balance, and courage. There's only something you could fit in there, and that is to be. So we're going to be using the words to be to help pad our sentences or to help fill out our sentences. Right. So the infinitive form of the verb has to in front of it. So let me look at A. You didn't have to write patient. You could put your own word in, but you need to, in front of patient, put the words to be. So, for example, you could have said to be a successful sailor, you need to be patient. Or you could say to be brave, to be courageous, to be skilled, to be trained. It doesn't really matter which verb you've used as long as you have the helper to be in front of it. There we go. To be skilled. Right. So let's look at B. Again, you didn't have to write ballet dancer and athletic as I did. You could have used any person or any occupation and any skill, but you need to be using the words to be to help you in the sentence. So I said to be a ballet dancer, you need to be athletic. In other words, fit, etc. So you could have used any occupational person. You could have said to be a weightlifter, to be a skateboarder, to be a cook, to be a chef. That's fine. Give yourself a mark if you've put a word over there. But the second part of the sentence, you need to have a skill that goes with the first part, and you need to use those helpers to be. So I've said to be a ballet dancer, you need to be athletic. You could have said to be a writer, you need to be creative. You could have said any number of things. So give yourself a mark if you've put a type of person on the left-hand side and then use the words to be together with the other word. And C, there was only one possible answer. So you get 1 mark for saying to be. All right? Good. So let's just quickly check. You could have used any word for A as long as it's prefaced by to be. When you get to B, you could have used any word for the first part as long as the second part is prefaced by to be. And for C, there was only one possible answer, and that is to be. All right, number 2, still to do with sentence construction or building sentences. They want you to write 2 more sentences of your own using the same format in question 1. So you can use those sentences as sentence starters or as a basis to build sentences. They want you to use the infinitive form of the verb to be, because that's what we did at the beginning of this chapter. All right. So your sentences need to be written in your own words. Remember, a complete full sentence will start with a capital. It will have a subject doing an action, and there will be punctuation. Because we're using the infinitive and because we're revising infinitive verbs, you will use the form to be. So here's an example. in order to learn, you need to be teachable. Or you could have said, to be a good student, you have to be hardworking. So you will have your own sentence, but check, do you have a verb? And in front of the verb, do you have the words to be? So you're going to give yourself a mark for writing a sentence, starting with a capital, ending with punctuation, having an action or a verb, but the verb needs to be in the infinitive form, so it needs to have to be in front of it. If not, unfortunately, you cannot get the mark. And you need to write 2 separate sentences that have the same style or the same construction. Right, let's look at subject-verb agreement. For number 3, they ask you to correct the mistakes in the following sentences. So they're asking you to change the verb so that they agree with the subject. So A says, you mustn't to go on board without wearing a safety harness. I can spot a mistake straight away. And you could have written the sentence in full and then corrected it, or you could have written the correct sentence underneath. So I've just said, you must not go on board without wearing a safety harness. Or you could have said, you mustn't go on board without wearing a safety harness, as long as you've eliminated or taken out that word to. If you wanted to keep the contraction or keep the apostrophe of contraction, that's fine. If you wanted to separate must and not, that's fine. But the important thing is that you've taken away that word to. Okay. B says she wanted to become a navigator. Right, I think you can spot the problem straight away. It's the tense of that word. Okay, you need to change it so that it says she wanted to become. Can you see how the A is changed to an O to show that the tense has changed? Okay, one more. C says, we was sailing around the Cape when there was a terrible storm. There is a problem there with that form of verb. Okay, you're going to change that form to we were sailing around the Cape when there was a terrible storm. It is possible to say sailing around the Cape. I saw 1 or 2 people change that round to around. That's fine. Either way is correct. But the mark is actually for changing that was into will. D says, I was seeing a dolphin yesterday. You can hear that the sentence is problematic. It has to do with that awkward form of a verb. So you're going to change was seeing to saw. I saw a dolphin yesterday, and you're going to give yourself a mark for that word, saw. Right, the last little bit asks you about verbs and punctuation. Number 4 says, put the verbs in brackets in the correct tense, punctuate the sentences correctly. So you're looking for mistakes, first of all, and then you want to add anything and change anything. So A says, why, you, lie in brackets, down, it's only 6 o'clock. So I see a few mistakes. First of all, there's something missing. And second of all, that lie in brackets needs to change its form. Next, the sentence is too long, it's awkward, it needs some form of punctuation over there. Then, because of that punctuation, we're going to change something into a capital, and we're missing something in that word it's. And we've got something missing from the end of the sentence. So you can see by the mark allocation, yes, there are lots of mistakes or lots of things to fix in this sentence. All right, I see something else. Good. So please check very carefully. It goes like this. Why are you lying down? It's only 6 o'clock. So let's quickly look. The missing part in the front is the verb are. Because of the are, you're changing lie to lying. Check that you've corrected the spelling. If you're not sure about the spelling rule, turn back and look at that table or the little diagram that we drew previously. It's a question, starting with a question word, why. So we're going to end the sentence there and make it a question mark. Then we're going to start a new sentence. Because we're starting a new sentence, that little I or that lowercase I is going to change to a capital. It's. Now, it's is a contraction. It's a contraction of it is. So we need an apostrophe of contraction between the T and the S. Then, when we're talking about time, as well as dates, that is the only time we're using numerals instead of words in the English language. So if I say it's 2 o'clock or 6 o'clock or 3 o'clock, instead of writing the words, I usually use the number. And of course, at the end of the sentence, we need something to show that the sentence is done, a full stop. So you get a mark for saying are, a mark for saying lying with the correct spelling, a mark for ending that question with a question mark, another mark for starting the sentence with a capital I, another mark for only putting the apostrophe between the T and the S, another mark for changing that 6 to a number in order to follow on with conventions of language, and another mark for spotting that there wasn't a full stop and putting a full stop at the end. All right, that's quite a few marks for one sentence. B says, I then in brackets not feel well right now, so I go in brackets to bed. All right, again, 6 marks. That means we need to fix quite a lot. I immediately spot something missing. Not feel, I have a feeling that there's something wrong with that verb. It's a long sentence, so perhaps I'm going to put a punctuation mark to give us a little bit of break or to break it up a bit. I see a small letter or a lowercase I. We know that that shouldn't look that way. I see something missing. And again, there's no punctuation at the end of the sentence. Quite a few things to fix. So let's have a look. I am not feeling well right now, so I'm going to bed. Oh, shame. Okay. So can you see the first space is filled in with am? The feel is getting ing. Because it's a double vowel followed by an L, we just need to add ing. To split up the sentence or to have a little bit of a break before we giving the explanation, we're going to put a comma. That lowercase I is going to change to an uppercase I. Then we need to make the verb am going. That is for 1 mark, changing go to am going. And again, a full stop at the end of the sentence. So quickly, let's check 6 marks. A mark for am, a mark for feeling, spelled correctly, a mark for putting a comma to split up those 2 parts, a mark for saying I, a mark for changing go into the form am going, and another mark for the full stop. Good. Number 5, read the paragraph below. You're going to put the verbs in brackets into the correct tense. They say choose either the past continuous or the simple past tense. So this is what the paragraph reads as it is, and then I'm going to show you that you could have put either one of those 2 forms of the verb. It says, last night I have in brackets the most extraordinary dream. I dream in brackets that I float in brackets on a cloud. High above the ocean. Far below me, B in brackets, the sea and a beach with pale blue sand where hundreds of children playing in brackets, they throw in brackets, square balls, backwards and forwards, over and over. Small pink waves break in brackets on the beach. Right, so I'm going to read it through as it would go, and I'm going to tell you you can choose either form, either the past continuous or the simple past tense, but these are the only 2 choices you have. All right. First, last night I had. That's the only choice you have. So last night I had the most extraordinary dream. I was dreaming, or you could say I dreamed. Nothing else. Okay? That I was floating, or if you chose the other form, that I floated on a cloud high above the ocean. Far below me was the sea. That's the only option. And a beach with pale blue sand where hundreds of children, you could either say were playing or played. You could either say were throwing or threw square balls backwards and forwards, over and over. And you could say small pink waves were breaking or broke on the beach. All right. So quickly, let's double check. A mark for saying had. A mark for either saying was dreaming or dreamed. If you wrote dreamt, D-R-E-A-M-T, there is a version of the word with a T. It is correct, although it's not the most common usage. So I would prefer if you used dreamed with an ED, although if you wrote D-R-E-A-M-T, I'm going to accept it. Then a mark for either saying was floating or floated. A mark for saying was, that's the form of be in brackets. Another mark for saying either were playing or played. Another mark for saying either were throwing or threw. And another mark for saying either were breaking or broke. Remember, they said you must use the past tense, but that it could be past continuous or simple. So either way is correct, but there are no other options. So if you had any other things, then you need to do a correction. Well done. So that was it seemed a little bit tricky. In the end, it wasn't as difficult as we thought. You guys are working hard. Make sure that you've made corrections and that you're ready to continue. The next video, we'll start looking at the next chapter, starting on